This is Between Hook Sets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the fishing crew.
Were you watching your live scope screen and set the hook too early?
No, I was waiting for the whole show to start because you know how it is when I hit go.
Yeah.
It sits there and it waits and it waits and it waits. I hit go and it's like, bam. I'm like, whoa, I better set the hook before I forget. So
you were early. You were early. I thought you were watching your scope screen and you went a little early.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty good at that. I don't know if it's the filtering. Since I reset the sonar defaults, it's a whole different story. That I don't know if guys have experienced that where you start to overfilter that live scope and you get a delay, right? So you've got your fish coming up here and you get right here. Well, with that delay, you're doing this. The fish really hasn't even got to your bait yet.
Well, I think we can get some answers out of our guest tonight because he's one of the scoping experts, and he kind of took onto this game pretty early in the game, and he kind of knows what he's doing, and obviously showed what he's doing in Mobridge scoping. So it's gonna be fun to talk to Jason tonight. We can ask a bunch of questions. He's a wealth of knowledge. So
and the bonus here is he spilled his guts to target walleye. So really, I don't think
it. So you better you better read it and you better fill me in. So we'll bring Jason in and get the story here. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Good. How are you guys? Sorry I missed you last week.
Yeah, no problem. You were too busy fishing league, and we were kind of talking a little bit about before the show. That was a bruiser of a night in league over there in the eastern side of South Dakota.
Yeah, Thompson was fantastic.
What did you say? You weighed 16 pounds and got 12th?
Yeah, it was just over 16. Couple nice overs crazy. And not great unders, but
Thompson is she's a different beast. She can really be on when she's on, and she can be fickle too, right? But
for sure,
man, there's something amazing about Thompson. We were on that pulling spinners, and I ended up making spinners with 30-pound tests because we kept getting bit off, and it wasn't northern getting bit off because you when you look at fluorocarbon, you could tell whether it's a northern biting it off or not, and it was the weirdest few days. The first day, I'm like, okay, this 10-pound stuff is not working. We're not going to lose a fish. Well, whatever it was bit through the 30-pound test spinner leader that I made. And I talked to Tyson Keller. He goes, it honestly sounds like, my kind of fish, the big walleye, the big female. So I don't know. It was just, there's something really cool about Thompson.
Yeah, it's one of those big natural lakes. I mean, there's definitely big walleyes. To get a 10-pound walleye in these lakes, you gotta. It's Bitter, Wabe, Thompson, right. Ponset. It's these big waters with lots of stuff to eat.
Well, and then of course, we're out there with the new electronics that we've got over the last, I suppose, let's say 5, 6, 7 years now. Everybody thought Ponset, Thompson, lakes like that were just these basin lakes with no structure, with nothing really there. They surprise you.
Well, yeah, you learn how much those fish just roam and don't sit on the bottom, and that especially.
Yeah,
so, your day job being a biologist, how we talked to Finsel about here with Lake Thompson. It's full of freshwater shrimp. I know that's great for perch, but what does that do for the walleye? Is that the same, or they're just what's the growth rate like on that lake?
I mean, it's highly variable. It's hard to say. I mean, it varies from year to year. Like, it seems like now that it kind of hit its peak as far as, expanding water levels coming back down since the 90s, growth rates have slowed. They're not what they used to be. Having said that, we still grow great fish in there. But I mean, there's definitely times when these fish live off of nothing but bugs, when there's, like now, before there's a lot of stuff to eat.
So
Yeah.
did anybody keep fish last week when you fished league?
Yep. We kept the fish that
Okay.
that we caught
So-
for there.
So what'd you find in them? Because we caught walleye on Saturday out here on Oahe. Nothing in them. A ton of fat, greasy
Yep.
fat, but empty bellies.
Bugs. They're just
Nothing-
spitting
yeah,
up
right.
black.
Okay.
They're eating a lot of bugs right now. A lot of the mayflies that are hatching.
Sure.
Dragonflies that are swimming around. They're living off of that stuff.
So is that like the main forage is freshwater shrimp, bugs, and some, minnows and stuff like that on Thompson, and the perch, obviously, and because there's not really any shad in there or anything like that, is there?
Yeah, no shad. I mean, there's obviously the minnows and that kind of stuff, but I mean, they're really waiting to grow till all the young of the year stuff, pops up here. The perch, the white bass, even carp, buffalo. Everything.
Yeah. So, well, crazy. I mean, like I said, I heard the weights from over there, and you were busy fishing that, so we had to go to second place and talk to McCoy a little bit, and so we kind of went backwards on it, but I don't think we. Eric was a great guest last week, and I got a feeling his conversation of what he did and yours is going to be a little different because you both were scoping, but he was taking a little different practice or not practice, a little different technique. I'm going to guess than what you did. So, NWT Mobridge. Let's talk a little bit about it. How'd your practice go? From what I heard from everybody, practice was tough.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't what it was last year during the MWC. I mean, kind of basing it off of that, going up there, thinking that the bite's just going to be crazy. Every fish is going to bite, and that just wasn't the case. My pre-fish wasn't as bad as what everybody was talking about. It wasn't good. I'm not going to go out and say that I hammered fish by any means, but I was catching some fish. It showed up on that Thursday before, and so Friday was my first pre-fish day. Trinity jumped in the boat with me, and we ran around checking a bunch of stuff, and I think we caught 4 walleyes that day. A couple small overs and a couple, mid-size unders.
You're not a big runner and gunner, so you really spent a lot of time around town for the most part.
Well, so yeah, everybody's heard of a walleye migration and everything else. It doesn't really happen on Oahe, so I knew that I was gonna concentrate right there in town. 5 to 10 miles either way. I didn't want to have to run up to the border or run down south. I knew that there was going to be lots of fish right there in town. Every year that we spawn walleyes out there, I mean, thousands and thousands of walleyes are in the Grand, the Moreau. They're not all up in North Dakota. So yeah, I concentrated close. Trying trees, flats, breaks, just everything.
So talking about that migration a little bit, because I know years ago I had Finsel on, and when you guys first did the tagging study, we had him on our radio show back then, and he made a comment that the further south you go on the reservoir, the less them fish migrate. The further north you go, they seem to migrate a little more. Like he said, the ones on the southern end, they figured live within 1 mile of where they were hatched their whole life. Is that something because the fish, like I said, I'm not seeing them like salmon make the big run all the way up to North Dakota and come back. I mean, they don't. I mean, but they're going to migrate a little into the Grand. They're probably. I mean, tell us what you think on that since you're out there spawning walleyes and stuff.
I mean, I think that's what they'll, if you want to call it a spawning run or something, they're running up every one of these major tributaries. Probably East and West River. It probably doesn't really matter. There's walleyes in all of them. Do they set up at the mouth or run up into them? I don't know exactly. Maybe it's just that we catch the ones that are in the backs of those creeks where our nets can fish effectively. But I know that from doing it, I mean, we catch a ton and, giant walleyes every year. Before this recent state record was caught, we've caught multiple state records that we've weighed, during the spawn.
Yeah. I love that you said that so people can hear that, right? Because that whole state record thing after Keith caught his, I just call Keith an 18-pounder for the sake of argument because basically it was, right? Do you think there's another 18-pounder out there or maybe a 19-pounder? You think?
I mean, I would have to say probably not right now, just because of, post spawn, all that stuff.
Right.
Those bigger fish were a little thin. I mean, but that's typical for this time of year. But will there be another? There for sure could be. I mean, I called that fish that I had a 32 incher, and I'm pretty sure it was longer than that. And if that thing fills out, I mean, a 32 incher can be. I mean, 33 incher is a giant fish.
I mean, yeah, that's 100%. Like 33-inch walleye is freaking a toad. And,
Yep.
During the NWT a couple years ago, Tyson caught a big one, and they told him it'd have like 4 to 5 pounds of eggs in it if it was during spawn.
Yep. Yeah,
so
just big bellies.
you get them big fish, and you get 4 to 5 pounds of eggs in a fish. That changes everything,
Right.
Right.
Look at Daryl Peterson's 14.5 pounder that he caught during the Hill tournament, right? It had that bend during the spawn, put 4 pounds on that, and you're pretty doggone close to another state record again.
Yep. And I think that's probably why, a combination of the unders they're super fat right now. They're in absolutely phenomenal condition. The big ones are coming off a spawn. They were a little bit easier to catch, but I don't think that they were quite post spawn enough to make them go, just real crazy and all bite,
Yeah.
I think if the water would have hit 60 degrees, it would have been a whole different deal, because now that the
Correct.
water's 62 to 64 out here, I don't want to call it suicidal walleye, but by God, they're eating minnows and crawlers like crazy.
Yep. And so that's probably the biggest thing as to the perception of a migration is the deep water on the south end of the lake takes longer to warm up. It takes, to get that stuff going. So it gives this perception that the walleyes are migrating south, that, because people are catching them, up at Pollock and then Mobridge and then the Moreau and then Whitlocks and then down, and it's just the way that it looks. And so us fishermen are like, well, that has to be what's going on. They're migrating, and there's fish on the lower end in, January. I mean, that from some of the tournaments and stuff like Curtis talked about, the winter fishing weekend where guys went out on the lower end and caught walleyes. They're there.
Well, I think some people forget about the fact that you get up to Pollock up here and you get up to Cannell Flats. That's shallow water, right? That's shallow water like the Morrow. So really, when you look at Pollock to the North Dakota border, it's shallow, warmer water. The closer you get to Mobridge, the further you get away. Now you're getting down around the corner and you're getting to Casca. Now we're talking 75, 100 feet of water by the time we get all the way down to the dam. And that makes a ton of sense. The way you explain that tonight and the whole migration, now it's making sense to me, because right now everybody's just headed to Pollock because the fishing is just crazy, but it's warmer, shallower water. 62, 64 up there, 57, 60 down here.
And that, having said all that, that's not saying that some fish don't swim up,
Sure.
up the river. They're free to move wherever they want to, but just, as I talk about the perception of a migration, it just doesn't really. It's not Lake Erie.
Well,
I'm glad that you brought that up too, because a lot of people talk about the migration, and so a lot of us, even myself, until this year, knowing what I know, being up here and talking to people and understanding it, I think there are just a ton of people that think, well, now that winter's coming, all of these fish from hundreds of miles of water are all headed north. And it's just not, it's not like they're headed up there in mass quantities. And I think we all probably need to realize that, because you can catch walleye at any given time around Whitlock Bay, that whole Whitlock area. You can go down around West Bend. You can come all the way up here. There are walleye, especially these big walleye that are living in the trees. I'm guessing Deepwater Sanctuary, they're not. Do you think a 12-pound walleye is going to run from, say, the Whitlock area or a Casca all the way up to the North Dakota border just because nature told it to?
I mean, it definitely could, but it probably doesn't have to. So many of them probably, a lot of them probably won't. So,
yeah. So, that was, you did Blake said, Jason's a man, more knowledge in that brain than I'll ever have in my life. So you're probably on your cell phone, so it's hard to read the comments that come in. We caught one in 2020. Me and my buddy Willie were out between Spring and Cow Creek, and he caught one with a tag, and the skin was starting to grow over it. We barely saw the tag. And he called it in. It was during COVID, and the biologist sent him a message like, dude, I got nothing going on. If you want to know more, call me. And so Willie called him, and they tagged that fish 8 years prior, less than 100 yards from where we caught it. And I've told that story, and people are like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, it's not like the fish lived in that 100-yard span its whole life, but it's just kind of cool to tell you that fish was in that area,
roaming around that area. No reason to leave.
Yeah, I mean, It wasn't like it just stayed in a 100-yard circle and that's all it did. But I mean, kind of cool to catch a fish 8 years later, and it was within 100 yards of where they were tagged.
Yeah, my dad. Go ahead.
So it was just a neat deal, and then like I said, everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, you that fish never left there," and I'm like, "No, that's not the case at all."
Yeah, my dad and I caught one of them reward tags from the first time they did the tagging study, and I don't remember the exact area we even caught it, but it was caught like less than 2 miles from where it was tagged.
So that was another thing I was going to bring up. You're talking about the warm water, and as it warms up, the further north you go, people get that misnomer that it's colder up north, but the shallower water is warming faster. So that's the misnomer in that. But, we've been talking a lot around Spring Creek area here. This lower end, I don't care what year it is, and all the years I've been here paying attention to it, it never seems that the lower end of Lake Oahe starts till like the first to second weekend of June. I don't care if ice is off in February or ice comes off in April. That's when this bite starts down here. Yeah,
I mean, I grew up in Pierre. There, for most of the years, you'd be hard pressed to catch a walleye on the lower end, probably even almost until July. I mean, like that way lower end. They just lots of smelt and everything else to eat that are still shallower in that 200 foot of water. And pretty much like clockwork, though it used to be.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. It's like this, first, like this coming weekend and next weekend is when the fish, start biting, and then as you get closer that weekend before June or July, it's like gangbusters, right? I mean, but I'm like, guys are like, well, the ice came off in February, and I'm like, great. It's still, I've never seen it change. Yep. It's like you can set your watch to it. Like the fish are going to start biting now, and then they're really going to go in these weeks, And it doesn't matter when that ice is on or when that ice is off.
And it all, you start fishing in the backs of bays too, right? Or like partially, that water is warmer than the main lake, and it just all is. A lot of it is just water temperatures and what's available to eat.
So, I mean, when you were in Mobridge practicing, doing your stuff, then we'll get into your tournament and break down your tournament a little bit. But were you seeing a lot of fish?
There was a lot of fish, yeah. There was quite a few fish shallow, doing a lot of chasing. They were just tough to catch. Tried a lot of different ways too. I mean, my dad came up, and the one day we did nothing but bait, and I think he left with 4, 15 inchers or something like that. But that wasn't any good either. I mean, you couldn't even get him to eat a minnow or a chunk of crawler, or not. You couldn't get him to eat it well anyway.
Yeah. Well, I know in talking with people like ice fishing, we had K-Man Kerry Conald on, and he's like, dude, there was so much dead smelt or dead gizzard shad that the catfish weren't biting. It's bad when the catfish aren't biting, in the system.
It's going to be tough. Yep.
Yeah. So, I think, did you see, that was a question, like, this stuff better, and I'm sorry we're getting more biology than talk about your tournament, but them gizzard shad are meant to die in the wintertime. They're not going to winter. I mean, they're not going to winter well. They just don't.
Not up here. They don't. It's one of the reasons why they work pretty well is because they don't survive harsh winters very well. So I think it ends up being a certain number of basically ice covered days, and a high percentage of them will be dying.
Yeah, and that's why, like, and they'll spawn multiple times a year at the right conditions, correct? I mean,
Yeah, I think so. Yep. As long as those water temperatures are right, they'll keep going. But I know that, you get down south and they actually cause problems because they don't die and they can just produce, massive biomasses of fish, and just basically, yeah, take up all the pounds per acre in rough fish, if you want to say that.
I was gonna say basically south of Nebraska, they're considered they're damn near considered an invasive species. Like Kansas, like all the fishermen that come from Kansas, he's like, the lakes are just covered in shad. We can't catch anything because it's just, biomasses of shad everywhere.
And I don't know exactly what the plan is on the river there. I haven't heard, but I know they were possibly talking about slowing down on the gizzard shad stocking because they can also cause the bite to just be tough because there's so much food out there. Then all of a sudden you're stocking those and it's making lots of small gizzard shad. Then it's tough to catch fish, and we want people to be able to catch fish. So
your job, you got a double-edged sword there. You want people to catch fish, but you also want the fish healthy for them to be able to grow up to catch fish. So you got a double-edged sword you play in your job.
Yeah, we can't keep everybody happy.
Yeah, but it's nice that you said they might slow down for the bait balls that we see anymore on. I don't care if it's on side imaging or down imaging or live, right? I mean, the bait out here is just unbelievable. At least at this point, we didn't see a lot of bait balls with small fish. They were bigger, and I don't know what they were. They were 10, 12, 15, 20 in a group. And but there were a lot of them.
I saw some of that up there by Mobridge too, and I think it was day 2. I actually kind of in the mouth of a bay, timber or something like that. I was kind of just shooting across, and there was 3, 4, 5 marks, spread out, coming up and hitting stuff about 15 feet down, and they were whacking some kind of bait. I don't know exactly what it was, whether it was small white bass or gizzard shad or herring. It probably wasn't them, being they probably were deeper, but I don't know what they were, but there was still bait around.
Yeah, they
Hence
were
why those little ones are so fat.
They're fairly decent size. I mean, they had to have been fingerlings, bigger than fingerlings, because those marks were fairly good size. I was chucking stuff at them, trying to get them to freak out and disperse, and it kind of became a game just to see if I could get in there and get them to spread. I was kind of hoping that a walleye or two would come off the bottom and show his colors, but it just never happened. But but at least we're not seeing those big, tight, those sweeping bait balls that look like a big cloud moving across the water, because that's a ton of food.
Give it a couple weeks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I suppose so. With 60 degrees for the whatever crappie we've got out here, we should be spawning crappie about now, shouldn't we? Or maybe a few days
they're definitely getting going. Yeah, they're sitting on beds and stuff over here. Bluegills are doing the same.
Okay.
So I'm sure that they're a little bit behind on the river. Bigger water, colder, all of that. But
I know we got our bass tournament coming up this weekend, and they had the South Dakota Bass Nation last weekend. And I talked to a guy on Thursday, and he's like, "Yeah, I think the spawn's done. The spawn's done. They're off beds. The big bulls are guarding. That's what's going on." And I talked to him Sunday, and he goes, "Oh, more moved up. So, so I mean, I don't know how. I mean, smallmouth. They make the beds like the bluegills and stuff, and they do their thing. But they were talking. I mean, 5 smallies for 21 pounds last weekend. It's a good bag. I mean, that's a good bag of smallies. And yeah, so let's get into your NWT win. Let's, you're out there practicing, started Thursday, pulled some bait. Like, I don't remember what place you were sitting in after day 1, but like walk us through the tournament, what your game plan was, and how you conquered that tough bite.
Well, I mean, I guess to jump back a little bit further is we Corey and his brother Jeremy and I jumped into the Casino Cup on Saturday. Figured we'd use it for a day of pre-fish and kind of see what everybody else was also catching. You're not gonna not bring in something for a tournament that you're in. You're kind of showing some cards, I guess, like someone else said. But so we jumped in that, and we ended up having 3 fish for 18, 19 or something, and got 4th place. Paid for the entry fee and some gas money. But I guess it was at that point that we kind of knew that the bite's definitely not what it was the year before. It's off a little bit, and I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, was it MWC was a little later, wasn't it?
It was like that first week in June. I think it was like right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was a little later. So, I mean,
Yep.
yeah. So the bite, again, like the southern end of Lake Oahe starts, mid June. So, that's kind of the whole conversation. But so yeah, you guys jumped into that, and then you get in, so you kind of know what you're doing, but the fish were moving a lot. They were moving a lot from when I went up there and practiced with the guy. Every fish we saw was moving. And talking to all the guys at the weigh-ins, they were moving fish. So
quite a few of them were, yep.
Was it a spot event, or was it find the fish with your scope and fish them?
I mean, a little bit of everything. I wanted to fish more trees, like just trees. That was the plan. I definitely was pulling some fish off of them, but the ones I had confidence in was that blue blanket to Pero, through there. And I mean, as you know, the wind blew, and it just became next to impossible to fish there. So instead of beating myself up or, nearly impossible trying to catch them, I went around the corner there and was just going to look where I knew I could fish.
Well, yeah. So really, the way the weather was, LeCompte to Timber to Deadman's was pretty logical, right? And the fact that there were quite a few boats there, I'm like, well, obviously they're marking fish, because these boats wouldn't be sitting there wasting time on areas that aren't holding fish.
Right. I mean, there was that, and that goes back to that first thing. There's fish everywhere. Maybe there wasn't as many fish in that area. I couldn't even tell you for sure. There's not as many trees in that area. I do know that. And so that I started fishing the first day. I ran right to some trees because we did have like an hour and a half in the morning where it was nice, before that wind picked up on Wednesday. I was one of the last boats out though, so I didn't get out until like almost 7:30 or something like that. So like I said, I had about an hour and a half to fish, and the first two fish I caught off the trees were roaming above the trees, but it was two unders, which I was, you're keeping no matter what. You can play with several of those. So
yeah, so that you guys, you catch 8, you weigh 5, so you had 3 fish to play with.
Yeah.
So and the under thing was probably the game for a lot of guys. Like that was a tough either. And I heard going into it, a lot of guys either had an under program figured out or they had an over program figured out. There's very few guys that had both figured out.
Right. And the guys that say we're cranking or something, catching the unders more consistently, some of the overs that they were catching, they were definitely getting, catching some of them bigger ones, them 28 to 30s, but they were catching the 20 and a half to 22s, also, and then having to make that decision whether you're going to go for points to your future to fish next year or, go to win this thing. And that's one thing I didn't have to worry about is it was never like on the front of my mind, I'm keeping a 22 incher that, kind of funny because I ended up keeping one, but
well, I know it was a day one was a chin scratcher, right? So like, wait a minute, Bo's already been in, Max Wilson's already in. What's going on? I mean, it was a big time chin scratcher, and then the I think 5.5 hour weigh in. Man, it took a while to get through that first day. And I know when you went on stage, you weighed. I'd never met you before. And I don't know what my deal was. I took a picture of him. I'm like, this dude, he feels like to me like he's gonna win. I don't know what it was. I have no clue. I don't honestly. I'm a bad guesser. I'm not clairvoyant, but I kept, I didn't in my head say this guy's gonna win, but I kept looking and I'm like, I've got this feeling. And then day 2 came along, and Bo was leading. Bo's not leading anymore. Well, that Jason Stahl guy, he's going to win this thing. So it was interesting.
Bo wasn't leading because Bo weighed in late, but
right.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was like when I was standing in line and I was standing next to Bo's mom, and I knew it was a tough day, and he hopped out of the boat, and I'm like, oh, he's got it. Because I saw his bag from walking up from the boat, and I go, he's got it. there's no way I didn't think Bo didn't have a slot fish. I'm like, Bo's got it. Like, he's got it. One. And yeah, he didn't have a slot fish. And that's what it takes in these tournaments is you got to have everything,
Yeah, I mean, a couple little peanuts and he wins, just the way it works out.
But yeah, so you go through what you were doing out there. You said you tried to target trees, caught some day one target trees. Go through the breakdown of what you were doing and what you were looking for in that water.
I mean, I was just looking for those roamers is what I'm calling them. They're just fish that are roaming around, open water. I was fishing trees that first couple hours, but the ones that I caught were still just swimming along the top or even, 10 feet above. They were coming up and hitting some of that high bait that was, 15, 20 feet down when they found it. But yeah, caught 2 unders right away. Wind started to blow. We came around the corner towards, LeCompte timber and stuff. And I went 3 hours plus with not another fish. At that point, decided to go make my pull, which had to come back down around the corner into that windy stretch a little bit. Made a pull and did catch one other under, lost another one, and then we snagged a carp that we thought we had a giant, but it is what it is.
You gotta love that one, that big catfish, that big carp. I mean,
man,
a couple falls ago, and I snapped onto one. I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm like, that's catfish. No, it's walleye. It's catfish. And it never rolled till right when my buddies get the net. And at the same time, we said, oh, catfish. Because it rolled right at the end. I'm like, oh, this is that 12-pound walleye I've been waiting for. And no, it was big catfish. So they are deceiving sometimes.
Oh, especially cranking, It's a little more obvious on a cat when you got a jig rod in your hand. You can feel them thumping. But I handed the rod off to the co-angler. Well, I had a great co-angler, Jeff. He's out of Redfield, and I got power poles on here now, and we're cranking. So I'm gonna net the fish. I don't want any, like if something happens, I want to be responsible for the net job. But yeah, I thought we had a big one. Turns out it was a carp.
Hey, we had the Vermonic Electric tournament last weekend, and Nick, the owners out of funny, he decided to buy a shotgun and give it away to the biggest carp. And I'm like, what happens when they don't catch a carp? And I weighed a 19-pound carp, a 20-pound carp, and a 21-pound carp. And I'm like,
nice.
I go check them for holes? Like, did they go bowfish them things? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But yeah, so you did a little polling in there. I figured you just scoped the whole time. So you actually put some crankbaits in the water.
Yeah, it was never the plan. Tanner Thompson was in the house with us, and he found a pretty nice little cranking pass that could be counted on for a couple fish. And so I had brought 4 line counters that I had planned on, baiting with if I had got my 2 big ones, and baiting was easier. So I know they said in that article that it was lead core, but it wasn't. I don't know if it was a misspeak on my part or if it was on theirs, but ended up tying up 8-ounce 3-ways just to make it work. I stole some crankbaits from Corey Rost and from Tanner, some bombers. I think I literally had 7 bombers in the boat. That was it. And so that was what we made work. Did find some lead core rods after the fact, but that last day of pre-fishing, I made that pass. I caught 1 fish after kind of figuring out the depth. It was like an 18.5 incher or something like that in like 20 minutes. And we went back to looking for other ones, knew that I could let out, 36 foot of line going in 26 foot of water, and they're going to be right there. And I can turn a couple fish.
That's pretty impressive that you went super old school with a 3-way.
Yeah, it's all I had. It just made it work. So
yeah, why not? It got you down. It got you down to where you wanted to be, right?
Well,
I mean, it is nice not having all that line out at times. I mean, just being right down there, just getting it done.
Or you still need to return those
He wants
boxes.
his money back.
Yeah, they're sitting on my shelf here. So
Yeah. So I mean, I was talking to Hunter Nitty at the weigh-ins, and he was so mad they left his cranking rods in Minnesota. He was pissed at himself. He's like, God, I should have brought those with.
Yeah,
so
there was a lot of guys scrambling like that. I know, I heard stories of guys going and getting boats because they were, wanting or gonna crank. So, but after I got that under, I told my co-angler, I was like, our only shot now is to go for some big ones. So which we had a long day and we weren't doing until 4:40. So we went looking for big fish, and I mean, it was definitely a struggle. We went for another 3 hours or so. I don't know the exact time. It probably was like about 3:30 when I was going along the edge of a channel and I saw a tree that had a couple fish sitting under a limb, and cast it underneath there, and one of them hit it. And like I said about keeping a small over, it was 3:30 and we had to keep it. I mean, it was a 21, 22 incher. Again, didn't measure it. It was a small over, and it helped us a lot, obviously. But it was right after that I saw that big fish swimming in the just out in the open and started chasing it. And I'd love to hear my co-angler's side of how long that took, because I've been telling people it was 15 minutes and casted 50 times, and I don't know whether I'm exaggerating or undershooting how long it took to finally get a bait in front of that in the wind. But as soon as I did, I mean it crushed it. And yeah, that was that 32 plus incher.
So that was like Eric was saying last week. He was playing the wind. He'd cast short and let it drift into the thing.
Yeah, so like I had my bow pointed into the wind, like everybody who does it likes to have it, just as far as for control and everything else. But that fish was slowly, swimming upriver. So you kind of have to keep your bow in the wind while you're drifting backwards, and while he, is moving. And it took me forever, like to get one in front of his face, being 25, 30 feet down. And it's part of the reason why I was using, what I was, just a 3/4 ounce tungsten from Widowmaker, and just a Z-Man jerk shad. I love them things everywhere.
So, I mean, that goes into a very good thing. Like, everybody talks about how scoping is, so bad and this and that, but boat control is critical doing this game.
Yeah,
but,
huge.
I mean, it's probably more critical than this. Reading the graph, having the graph is one thing, but to get that fish to bite, it's 9 times out of 10 it's the boat control to get you onto that fish.
Yeah, and there's definitely times when if you want to call it scoping, but you can see a fish out there, pitch at it, and all you have to do is get it close, and that fish just comes screaming, and it's on. And that's not always the case. I'd say it's more often it's not the case, where you need to put your bait right in front of their face and present it right, and to get that bite.
So think about that, though. I mean, that brings you to a good point. Is okay, you got to put it right in their face. So before we had this technology and we pulled crankbaits, or we drug spinners, or we drug jigs or casted jigs, do you think it's the same? Like, we had to put it right in their face to get them to bite that? Like, I mean,
for sure. I just, no one was chasing open water fish like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
yeah, you're cranking on Erie. I get those are open water fish type of thing. But as far as open water fish on Oahe or any of these other, no. And then it's been somewhat recently that, last since scope, that, hey, there's a lot of fish in these trees. I mean, the guys obviously have cranked them or baited them, before, where, you learn, I need to let out 50 feet of line. If I let out 51, I'm snagged in the trees if you're pulling bouncers or something. And there's sometimes when those fish are up high and it's just, wild, your best day of fishing ever. And then there's days where you don't catch anything because they're 20 feet down in the trees. And obviously live scope lets us see that, and you can still catch them when they're down in the trees too. Just now that they're there.
We can follow them.
Right.
I mean, we can go to where they're going, and instead of constantly pulling across whatever point it is we're pulling in, and there's no fish, hardly any fish there, or no fish there at all.
Right. And that's definitely one thing that I saw, is there was a lot of fish on that ledge that people were fishing. That's where I was cranking. I couldn't get bites out of them by pitching. You'd get follows. Didn't matter what it was, whether jigging a minnow old school, or, the plastics or jig wraps or whatever. But a crank could get enough of them to fire to where, like I said, you could be counted on. But you can't catch them all.
And that 100%. I mean, everybody thinks it's just you have it on your boat, you're going to catch them, but that's a huge thing. Is you get the crank in front of them, but you couldn't get them to bite. Now you got yours to bite in the trees. Now, when you were going into this, you pretty much were going to target open water ranging fish because that's a better bite, or what?
See, I wouldn't say that. I guess that's what I was kind of leading into with that last thing, is that we definitely got some fish on the trees to bite. And that was the plan. But if you found one of these open water fish, the ones that are chasing bait around, coming up and hitting that stuff, they were easy to catch. It's just that you weren't seeing lots of them in a day. So that was, I guess, a risk reward of, searching for some of those open water fish that are roaming, more than likely looking for something to eat, not just sitting there on a point or on a flat or in the trees already, if you want to call it resting, or just hanging out waiting for something. But they were definitely easier to catch.
So, everybody says, like, and this is going back scope, and then we'll finish your day one and then get into day two a little bit, because you're only at 4 fish right now to weigh in for day one. But, I always hate the statement, in the bass world, they're like, they want to get rid of live scope because these guys are catching fish they've never caught before. And I'm like, no, they're just catching fish in spots they've never caught fish before because they didn't know they're there. That fish still goes up to the bank to spawn. That fish still goes out here and does this zip. I hate that statement. And is it, that fish goes places. It's not just open range,
Yeah, obviously it made it easier. If you're not, using live scope anymore, I'm not going to say you don't have a chance. You still do. Like I said, I caught fish cranking, but it wasn't, I didn't catch any of my big ones cranking. So you got to be using it anymore. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
It's hard not to use it anymore. You just, when you're out. Last weekend we went, I, for the most part, was fishing blind, and it was horrible. I was out fishing, right? I was having fun, but it was just absolutely horrible because I didn't know. I go and kind of take a peek. Yeah, it's and honestly, if you don't know how to use live scope and you have it, it can help you not catch fish all day long, all season long, right?
For sure.
It's just amazing how it can either do very good for you, or it can wreck a day.
Yeah, you spend too much time, looking at it, and especially in the beginning, if you want to call it that, when you first get it, where like thinking that every fish is a walleye, and then you kind of realize that actually very few of them are walleyes, and you got to look for a certain type of fish on the live scope in order to even have a chance.
You spend hours fishing the wrong fish.
I've been there. Been there.
So,
but no, that was that big one that I caught that last day. That was my 5th fish. So I caught 2 out in the trees. I caught 1 cranking, and then found 1, small over sitting in the trees, and then caught that big one. And it was at that point that we headed in. I knew that I didn't want a dead fish penalty. That could have been costly. And so we headed in. Turns out it probably wouldn't have mattered because we could have stayed for some unders. I think I was the 3rd to last one off, like you said. I don't think I weighed in. I was doing it 4:40. I don't think I weighed in until 6:15 or something by the time I got the boat off.
It was so excruciatingly late.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I stood at that water tank and took pictures, and I didn't sit down. I hardly moved. I thought I was gonna die. It was crazy.
Yeah. By the time I, got gas, dropped the co-angler off because we met at the church, got back to, we were staying at New Everett's there, and, retied a couple lines. It was time to go to bed. So they asked, how are you feeling after day one? I was jacked. I was in 7th, but I by the time I got back in it, I didn't even have time to think about it. Time to go to bed.
7th after day one, you're going out for day 2. Obviously, you were out early, had to be back earlier. So Go get into day 2.
Day 2, got to fish with Steve Alverson, a local guy in our local league. That was really cool that drew him for a co-angler.
Honestly, that was a lucky big deal, right?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like no, not everybody knows about our league, but that guy kicked everybody's butt in this league that we have here for years and years. I mean, he's a hell of a fisherman, and have learned a lot from him, even though just through seeing where he's fishing, what he's doing, that kind of thing through the years. And so that was cool to have him in the boat. He asked me what the plan was that morning, and I still said at that point I wasn't sure what the plan was. I said we were going to drive south until we got too wavy and start fishing. So that's pretty much what we did.
So day 2, you get out there. Yeah, you got a partner that I mean, I don't know, did you ever fish together before, or was like
No.
you just, but you're like, okay, I got LV in the boat. I'm pretty good to go here.
Yeah, and I mean that is one, bad thing about, if you want to call it, the pro and co fishing right now, is like when I'm in the front fishing, it is really hard to have a co in the back. Even though I had a shuttle for them, they had a live scope and stuff like that, but it's nearly impossible to try to keep on your own fish, and or to even find your own fish to cast at when that person's up there, whipping around trying to find what I want to find, as far as, the right fish. So he was able to catch one on live scope, a small one that we threw back, but started the morning, it started scoping. I think I made it to almost LeComp before it got too wavy. Didn't want to go around the corner, and started coming back to the north or upstream. And I don't know exactly how long it took, but I was in the mouth of timber when I saw those fish up chasing bait, 15, 20 feet down, knew they were walleyes, and started pitching at them. They were all spread out 25 feet apart or so, and caught one. It was like a 19 and a quarter, 19 and a half. Caught another one. It was a 19 and 3/4, and caught another one, all this in like 5 minutes. And it was about a 20 and an eighth, which no brainer to throw back right away in the morning. But after that, it wasn't good. We made it all the way up to Dead Man with no other bites. It must have been, somewhere around 11:30, 12 o'clock, when I said, let's go make that troll and pass that I got, get our 5 in the boat, or if we could get at least 3 in the boat. So we went around the corner and made the troll and pass, and first fish was a 19.9. I mean, one of those just absolute perfect slot fish. Shortly after that, we caught a 17. Shortly after that, we caught a 16. So we had 5 fish in the boat. And about that time, we were up around the corner again, kind of at the mouth of LeComp, and put the troll and stuff away. Said we need to go for 2 big ones, and we didn't hardly get the stuff put away. And I saw a fish that was roaming out in the open, and it hit the shoreline, and it just sat on the bottom, and pitched at it a couple times. He said 6 to 8 times before I finally landed one close enough where it ripped up off the bottom and hit it. And that was a 28 incher, a no brainer to keep. And then we went about another 2.5 hours with no fish. I remember we were working down towards the trees that were between Dead Man and Timber, and I looked at my clock, and it was 2:38. Was due in at 3, so I knew we had about 7 minutes left to fish. Is all. Jeff had said that with that new Fishing Chaos app, that as you come in, they're manually entering you in, and so if you come in some sort of line and you're at the end of that line and don't get entered in, you would be considered late. So that was kind of in my head, as far as like, if there was some sort of rush to get in, it wasn't that your boat was off plane. You needed to be physically entered into that app in order to be, as soon as they enter boat 156, then you're in, or 153, whatever I was. But that kind of was in my head, that I needed to get in and make sure I wasn't late. Being that at that point, I knew I had 5 decent fish with the one, or 4 decent fish with one pretty solid over, and I was gonna be, I was happy that I fished my first NWT and didn't choke.
Yeah. You're probably in cash checking range with what you're sitting at, right? I mean, paying back.
Yeah, I'd have been in that top 10 pretty easy, knowing that the second day is always tougher than the first, and we had wind the whole day on day 2. It was probably going to drop off, fairly decently, but like I said, at 2:38, it was right when I looked down. I saw a fish sitting at the base of the tree right on the edge of the channel and started pitching at it. And it wasn't until maybe the third or fourth pitch that I actually made a good drop on it, and it came ripping up out of the tree and hit it and set the hook and told Steve I got one. And then the fight was on. I had him to where I could see color, under the water, maybe 4 or 5 feet down, and it went right back down to the bottom. So that was pretty nerve wracking, but ended up coming back up. He threw it in the net, and it ended up being a 30-incher, and said, "Steve, we got to go." So threw it in the live well, and on the way back across, I remember looking over at him like, "What just happened?" Just.
There was no high five. There was just get this thing in, get the trolling motor in, let's go.
Well, yeah, I pulled the trolling motor. Like he was still, taking the fish off, throwing it on the ruler, throwing it in. I was like, it doesn't matter, it's big enough. And I pulled his live scope and like started the motor, and we gotta get going. And we had plenty of time. We were still in, 18 minutes early since we were straight across there. It wasn't a big deal, but it was still just a pretty crazy moment.
So you, like I said, obviously you're in panic and getting in, you're going across, and you're like, okay, when did you think I got a chance at this?
Well, I mean, it was at that point that I knew that I was going to be right there. Like I didn't think I was going to win by any means, but knowing that I was 6 pounds back, but I knew that was a better bag than the day before, and that, like I said, you're going to move up a couple spots and you're going to be close. Like I didn't think I was going to win, but a second or third was a real possibility at that point, And then opposite of the day before, like I get in, I'm one of the first boats in. I had to have been maybe the third or fourth person across the stage, and, jumped right into the lead. And then the nerves really set in.
Then everybody wait. You just sit there and it's like the paint's drying on the wall as the way.
Yeah. Well, I know I said something in that other article, but Robert, got me coming off stage, and he's like, "Hey, can we do an interview?" And I need to grab a water. My throat's dry. I just went and hid.
Yeah, I chased you too. Let me pop this. I think this picture is where you realize the trophy is heavy, but the handles aren't good.
Yeah, I broke the side right off of it. Yeah,
right. They've got 2 tiny little Brads holding this 20, 25-pound trophy, and like it's amazing that it held together. This is a great shot too. I love this. Do you look at those kind of pictures and go, that's me. I won that thing, and it's kind of a dream, right?
Oh, I mean, it's a dream come true for sure. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. I mean, getting into fishing these things, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of a chicken to jump in and do my first one. I mean, I didn't get in thinking that I was gonna, say be a donator or something like that. I've had some pretty solid finishes around the state in the past, but I mean, it's still in the back of your head that you're getting in this, big tournament, and you're gonna fail.
Well, you had fans out there that knew you were good enough to win that thing, because I heard quite a bit of whooping and hollering when Jeff said, you're the champion. So
yeah, it's a bunch of those league guys that hung around to see. That's pretty cool.
Well, and I was sitting in the crowd, and people are like, "Who is this guy? Who is it?" I'm like, "Oh, he's good. Don't worry about it." There's a lot of, "Who's this Jason Stahl guy?" And I'm like, "No, yeah, you just keep it that way. Don't know his name, but he's gonna sneak up on you." So
that's even doing this is, I mean, it's not easy for me. I like kind of hiding out and not being in the center of attention. So
we appreciate you jumping on, but
we do.
I'm pretty sure I passed you. You filled up in Selby on the way home. I was pulling Thompson's boat, and I'm like, "Oh, there goes the champ." You were just kind of like in a daze driving home.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, one got pulled off back, to go do an interview, which I'm terrible at. Just so go do that, and then Jeff's like, "Hey, you got to go do the polygraph," and it's like, okay, let's go do that. And so by the time I got done, I mean, most people had cleared out, besides a few of the league guys that stuck around, and some of the guys in the house. And turned on my phone, I had 71 messages or something like that from people just on regular text. And yeah, pretty surreal. But those guys kind of wanted to stay and party. I said, I'm going home. I went to work the next day. I was back at work on Friday.
So when did it set in that you did it? Like, there's always a talk of guys after they win a big tournament and they're like, it was in the moment, but then it was like a day or two later that I went, holy shit, I just did that.
I mean, it probably still hasn't really set in that, like that. Like I said, it's literally a dream come true. You just wouldn't expect that at that high level that you'd be able to do it. But obviously you work at it, and it is possible. So.
Well, I mean, I've watched you and Roe through all the fishing crew circuits and watched you through league and all that stuff. And I mean, you guys went to scoping pretty early in the game. Like you guys were pretty early in it. And I remember watching you guys in the front of that old Ranger you guys had, or it was a Skeeter.
I had a Triton.
Yeah. And you guys had some rigged up stuff up front to make it work. And I'm like, that's just right there. You guys wanted it, right? You wanted
for
it.
Sure.
You were going to, whatever, like you weren't going to take, no, we're just going to stick to trolling or doing what we're doing. And you guys adapted and overcome, and I'm like, I didn't even know you bought the boat you had, and I'm like, oh, Stahl's gonna get an upgrade from the Triton, like Ranger.
Yeah, no, this is actually my second one. I had bought a holdover 2 years ago in 04, and so then I bought Max Wilson's certificate from the NTC last year. Is what this one was. He
told me in the crowd. I go, well, Stahl's got a new, and he's like, no, he bought Max's certificate last year. So
yeah.
I mean, congratulations, man. I mean, what a well deserved. I've watched you for a long time, and very well deserved for you to go out and win that thing. And I didn't have any doubt in my mind when you came in day two, and I'm like, if Bo can do it, this is a winner right here.
I appreciate it. It's very, very surreal.
Yeah. Well, you guys from Lake area, that league, you guys show up and win stuff. And that's kind of you really represent that group well.
Yeah, it's not a beer drinking league for sure.
No, it's a for real deal, isn't it?
Yeah, there's multiple MWC winners in it. Austin Ellingson up at Bitter, Corey won. Corey and Ryan won. Chamberlain a couple of years ago. Guys that have fished professionally, even it's there's a lot of really good fishermen that fish that, and it's a good group of guys.
It makes you better.
Yeah, for sure.
Beer league, you're out there in a beer league, you're not as competitive as when you got good sticks you're fishing around.
Yeah, no, it definitely pushes you to get better. And yeah, I got my butt kicked in that league for 10 years before anything, started to happen. So you can look back at all the results. Like it is possible to learn and get better for sure.
Well, you think about the competition in that league. I mean, you put the three Full brothers in there too, and now you've even got more, right?
Yep. No, there's a ton of them that any of these tournaments that that they know enough to be really dangerous.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. And I like to call Brock the Notham the third Full brother, just because it's easier to call them the Full triplets.
Yeah, those guys killed it out at the championship last year. I mean, that 5 fish limit, that was a giant bag. Like,
that was 58 pounds, was it? 56,
yeah,
58?
Yeah. In South Dakota, as good as you can expect. I mean, you just you just can't get, 2 10-pounders and 3 19-inchers, multiple days. It's just as good as it gets.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to that hour mark, and we had a question last week, and we decided we're going to ask it every week now. So if you could fish with 3 people, just who would they be? If maybe they're not here, they're here. If you had one more trip to take, who would your last the three people you'd fish with?
Oh, I'd probably keep it in the family. My brother, my dad, and my grandpa probably. He's kind of the one that started me, fishing, taking me fishing in his old boat. We used to drift whichever way the wind blew and pulled spinners,
Sure.
but I mean,
Yeah,
obviously lit something.
Think about that. Like when I was telling the story last week when we were out, or 2 weeks ago, I was out with my buddy up in a casket pulling crankbaits. The way we used, like when we were kids, right? You'd drift. You'd travel into your rigs and you'd drift. But I remember pulling crankbaits on Lake Thompson one time, and we didn't have line counters. And I started like pulling the rod back and forth, and my old man just started chewing my ass. What are you doing? You're not going to get a fish to bite. And I set it back in the rod holder, and boom, a fish hit it.
Yeah, now we do that on purpose all the time.
Yeah,
you
right.
sit there and hit them things.
Yeah, we snap the line or pull the thing or whatever. And he was just chewing my ass because that was not going to – all I'm doing is messing around and they ain't going to catch fish. You know, and I'm just like – now we do it, right? Like I just look back at stuff like that like, oh, we just went and drifted a flat. It's all we ever did. And now we're doing, halftime – I don't know last time I tied up a Lindy rig. You know what I mean? Like,
I haven't used them.
Yeah.
But yeah, West Bend on the flats, drifting whichever way the wind blew. That was it.
Yep. So, well, buddy, yeah, absolutely, Zach. Well, thanks for hopping on. We made it an hour. So you are
crazy.
Yeah, you had no problem filling up an hour.
So perfect. We appreciate your time. Congratulations on the win again, man. And we'll see you on the water this summer.
Yeah, we'll see you at the Gov Cup for sure. So
all right, take care. Thank you much.
We'll be there.
See you later.
Next one you got to take the trophy home for.